Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to today's podcast with Building My Legacy. I have with me today Gessie Schechinger. Did I get that right? Closer?
Yep, it's pretty good.
Okay. He is Chief Revenue Officer at OnCourse Platform. It is a platform for CRM and for managing sales for companies. And so it's a huge piece for all of us, no matter what part of our life that we're in, whether we're building our legacy and looking at how to increase our reach with that, or as we're looking at how do we optimize the people that we're currently working with. So Gessie has, just so you have a little understanding of his background, he worked outbound with doing a call center and blew the results way out, and 297%, right? Increase or that you did in sales, or please, you blew out your quota by 297%.
It's helpful to find a brand new market.
Yeah, well, good. And then you also have won awards for what you've done with sales and what you've achieved for 2 Fortune 500 companies. So Gessie comes to us with a background in sales and an understanding of how sales markets need to be built and really grown. So from there, Gessie, if you would just explain a little bit about what it is that you do really in a much better way than I did, and so our audience is clear.
Yeah, not a problem. Well, the funny part is as we talk about legacy, my shtick is kind of like the laziest salesman in the world, right? Because what I'm looking to do is leverage technology so you can burn calories on the things worth burning calories on, and then automate the rest. And so, largely yes, as you said, career sales guy, have always been responsible for revenue in every position I've ever had. And then ultimately leadership responsible with all the revenue, which is anyone in that position can understand the sheer managing chaos of it all. And, you get some additional pressure and stuff like that. But really just always in that position where very goal-oriented and just kind of climbed up throughout. You start banging out the phones, just hitting calls all the week, and then that eventually gets you to a field rep job where you get to be on planes and gets lots of Hilton and Delta points, and that stuff's all a good time until you have kids and your wife's like, honey, I feel like you should be home because you're gone 300 days a year. So then you go to management, right? And so that's kind of the arc that I had in my career so far. But a lot of the times when I was in the challenging situation, and keep in mind, Lois, that I was a C's get degrees type guy, not what you call an overachiever. I really every day, in college, I'd look at the syllabus and be like, okay, well, if I get 100 on this, 100 on that, I won't have to do these 3. And I really just kind of chipped away at stuff like that. And when it came to sales, I would just kind of do the same thing. Like, I don't want to make all these calls. Like, there's got to be a shorter way. And that's where I eventually ended up getting a call from a buddy of mine who owns a company called ZibTech that did software development services. And he said, hey, our CRM is terrible. We're paying for 8 different sales tools. We want to build something new. Will you come help us? So I was like, absolutely. That sounds fun. And so that gets me here. And so I've been for the last little over 2 years now focusing on just all things technology and all things sales technology. And the interesting thing is no matter what avenue you're going down or what you're trying to pursue, your ability to message correctly and to get that message out and get engagement from other people seems to always be critically important.
It really is important. And you look at companies right now, I think there's so much that is being rethought, right? As people are coming back to work from COVID. If you retooled and did some things so that you were part of the central products, you're still booming and growing, and your need is well defined until you have to redefine it again when that passes. But the other sector of companies are looking at, okay, how do I manage my costs? How do I bring people back on? And who do I really need? Do I need my big departments, marketing, sales? I need product development if I'm going to move forward, if you're an innovative company or one that relies on development. So given that, Gessie, what is it that you suggest to companies as they're weighing these choices that they have? How do they really manage that? And how does having a platform like yours make a difference?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I guess I'm a little bit tougher of a guy because everyone's essential to me, because if we had any fat, we would cut it out. And so even as it's interesting, as you said, like for those who are going to cherish Lois and I's conversation 10 years from now, we'll understand that we're in a very weird pandemic situation where we're all stuck watching old Netflix shows for hours on end to keep our sanity. And so that has given everybody some time in the locker room, so to speak, to think about what the decisions they're making in their businesses are and how those decisions are critical. And a couple of like really simple, easy things that I think everyone's aware of is, you can consolidate where possible, and you can just see, you have in every business, most parts should be essential, but you certainly can't let go of any revenue generating activities. And you also, where you do have redundancies, especially in your tech stack. And so obviously I'm a big software guy. And so I look at all of the various subscriptions that people are looking to. So in any given business today, people are usually have, you're going to have a piece of accounting software. You may have a ERP system, which is enterprise resource planning. That's like your inventory management, scheduling, stuff like that. You have a CRM, which is customer relationship management tool. And then you might have MailChimp, some kind of email marketing tool. You can have Calendly for appointments. You can have a phone system. You can have all of these, different tools that really start adding up. And so we're really focused on businesses that are doing, I would say, between 5 and 25 million in revenue, or maybe up to 50 million in revenue. Where we bring a value is helping people who need all the technology but don't have the budget to pay for the big boys and all the specialization. And so we wrap up all those, consolidate a lot of those tools in one. You're still going to need your accounting piece and your scheduling piece, but when it comes to your sales, and we also do SMS texting, all of that kind of tools we have wrapped up in one really cohesive thing. And then the second part to your question is, how, if you are under these financial challenges, and how do you increase or at least subsidize your bandwidth? And that is, using automation to amplify the efforts of the people that you have. And with automation, and it's really funny. So Lois, everyone gives me a lot of crap because automation is usually seen as, Gessie, so help me God, if I get one more canned email that fires off to me every day. And that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, there's not a lot of value. People usually can see right through canned messages, things like that. But what I am talking about in automation is automating your processes and automating the outreach that doesn't matter. So for example, let's say that you do need to do some outbound type sales. You can have automated email going and automated LinkedIn engagement going while you're using the personal time and actually burning calories on making phone calls and trying to reach out to people. You can also automate the first half of your campaign so that you are personalizing and using that. Sales and personalization is always going to ring true, no matter what technology does.
Okay, so Gessie, give me an example of that, because I hear the words. I'm trying to put it into a structure that's usable. So give me an example, if you would, please.
Sure. So let's take LinkedIn, for example. So LinkedIn, the way that you could automate a campaign with LinkedIn is, one, you can automate the actual sifting through and finding the people you want to connect with.
Right.
That portion can be automated. Then most likely you're going to be a smart sales rep and not just throw up your value proposition at them straight out of the gate, because you want to build a relationship and do the right thing. So then you're going to send just some kind of generic message that thanks them for connecting. So now we have those first two set up. That third message, what our tool will do, for example, is it will auto-populate inside Messenger the bulk of the message, and then allow you to just take a couple minutes. For us, our rules at our company is 2 by 2, so you take 2 minutes and do at least 2 things to personalize the message. And so you go in, and it allows you to kind of adjust and format it to the user and add in those appropriate relation building things, and then you go. And so that's kind of a quick example of, you didn't really have to do the first 2 steps, and then you bulk kind of had most of it done. So you're just fine tuning and then resending as the messaging goes out.
Got it. I like the idea of the personalization, because you're absolutely right. We get so many spam emails now, and after a while you read the first 3 words and you know when to tune people out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the problem is, in this current state that we're in with this whole pandemic stuff, everybody has doubled down on the email and all this. And so there's a lot of noise right now. And so I don't know about you, Lois, but I can't tell you the last time I've read a 3 to 4 paragraph email from somebody I didn't know. It's got to be pretty short and sweet if you want to get my attention.
Well, I think that's true. And I think our lives are busy. And I think they're going to be more busy now as we go back, because it's like people are double pedaling to pick up the pieces that they've lost or that they've had to let go of. And so instead of easing into what's coming, it's like they're running and pulling things along with them, right? So given that, you really don't have time to read at all. And so you take snippets. So it says a lot about processing and how we process. So as a salesperson and how you reach out to people, what are your suggestions to people in terms of how you do that? I mean, I've also gotten tired of hooks, gimmicky hooks, because, right, they're gimmicks.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of that clickbait type subject titles where you see a subject, you're like, oh, that's interesting. You go into the email and it says nothing about that subject whatsoever, which is very annoying. And in my personal position, is not setting you off on the right relationship path. Leading with a lie is probably not the best way to form a good business relationship. How we try to cut through the noise is, and these people should be paying me a commission. They're not. But I suggest their tool all the time is a thing called Vidyard. And Vidyard is a tool that...
Vidyard?
Vidyard, yes.
Oh, okay,
So Vidyard. And these actually give you the ability to embed videos inside of email messages. And so if you do have, unfortunately, 2 to 3 paragraphs worth of something that you want to get out there, the odds of me clicking on a less than a minute video are way higher than the odds of me reading 4 paragraphs. And so that's one of the tricks that you can use. Sending video versus email is really good. And then also just sending, there's another cool, one of their competitors, Loom, that you can actually pre-record and send out video explanations to people. And especially in the terms of what we're dealing with right now in the market business culture, just as much as outreach, client retention is important. And being able to communicate to your existing customer base. Again, title of the podcast, legacy, right? Like you want your reputation and the reputation of your business to be good. And a lot of that has to do with how you communicate to your existing clients and their experience. And so using these same tools to mass people to your client base, send them a quick video, as the CEO of, this is what we got going on, people. It's a personalized message. You can do it. There's a lot of great software tools like Loom and Vidyard that allow you to do that very easily. And you can send out messages that aren't these generic canned COVID-19 responses that we're all getting 18 million of a day. You can be a little bit different with a personal message that way and stand out.
Very, very nice. Thank you for that. I think, those are easy tools and easy for just about anybody to use. So one of the things, as I think about what you've just shared, there are shifts in terms of how we can go about doing things. And there's easy tools. As you look at the future of sales, Gessie, where do you see the future of sales going?
So one of the most interesting things is that right now, not just sales, but in many aspects of our marketing, we're evaluating a lot of stuff on activity and not productivity. And those are two very different things, right? So if you're a sales rep that's making 400 phone calls a day or a week, that's awesome. But are you selling something or not? That, and the new way that I think that we're going to shift to is going to be doing more of what were the hours per opportunity. And the way that looks is typically your best sales guy shouldn't be the guy that makes 400 calls a week. Your best guy should be the guy that made one call and made one sale. Like that's actual productivity, right? Like that'd be amazing if it was possible. So being able to see and create tools that are going to change the metric and how we evaluate salespeople. Really looking at, all right, what was the true cost of acquiring this customer? Being able to track and see that I had this much of marketing spend that then rolled up to this, maybe entry-level salesperson that then went to this national account or some sales person that equated in sale. What was that cost? What was that time? And then let's reward and promote people based on productivity instead of activity. I think that's one of the best shifts that's going to come. And it's going to take people like us and others to build tools that help look at things a different way in order to make that possible. But I think it's going to become way easier for business leaders and owners to evaluate their sales staff and get a really clear idea of their spend and those, customer acquisition costs. The second part is in any kind, and I'm guilty of it, everybody's guilty of it, when you do have somebody you're trying to sell and you get a little emotional, and so you can see everything with rose-colored glasses, and you're like, oh, this is like 90% boss. Like this thing's entirely he's gonna close tomorrow. I had the most beautiful conversation with him. We're all a victim of that, but I don't think when salespeople do like, now we're 60% close is gonna be good enough for the decision making of the future. And so I think that we're also going to see tools and automation that is going to help us actually look into the different types of activities and the different stages that had to happen. And then tools are going to tell us what percentage of close this opportunity really is.
Got it.
And so that's going to be another fundamental shift for sure.
So what you're talking about is really sales efficiency. Efficiency leading to productivity. I mean, you're right. We just plain generate activity because we assume that activity is going to produce a result.
Well, and everyone loves to play the metric game. And that's why all of us I don't even have any hair left, but if I did, that's why we'd be pulling it out at all of the spammed email we got because everyone's doing the metric. And there's some that you can take to the bank. So for example, I know that if I have a sales rep that makes 36 calls a day, he's going to schedule 2 appointments and one of those 2 appointments is going to show up. In 4 different markets, that has been true, top of the funnel type metrics. when you throw that out into things like email, so if email, for example, you can expect a 1% to 2% click rate. So I got to throw out, 100 emails to get one person to even click on it, and then the conversion goes from there. So people are using these metrics, and because of sales tools and technology, we've all been given bazookas, and we can literally just blast out so much stuff. And so everyone's playing the numbers, and I think we're going to get into a situation where it's all just considered noise, and we're going to have to pivot and readjust. And that's largely what's going to take place. And that those companies that are able to relook at those processes and relook at productivity versus activity are going to be the ones that come out on top for sure.
So Gessie, do you also see the sales cycle beginning to shrink and get tighter because of the sales tools and the increased efficiency, or no?
Well, the sales cycle is definitely shrinking, but I think it has far less to what we're doing on the sales side as much as it has to do with what they're doing on the buying side. Buyers they say the typical buyer's journey, by the time I talk to them, they're already 60% of the way there.
Right.
Because otherwise they wouldn't have even talked, right? So there's a couple thoughts to this. And just so you know, so my dad's a sales guy and my grandfather was a sales guy. My grandfather's a sales guy for DuPont. My dad was a sales guy. We kind of have the breed for it. And my dad despises this comment where I say when he was in his heyday, they were literally relying on salespeople to give them knowledge of what stuff did. And now the consumer, because of the availability of information, they know a ton about you and a ton of your competitors and what your product does before the first hello. And so that really shortens the sales cycle, and you have to be on top of your game. And the only way that you can do that is a couple of different ways. And that's one, truly know the value of the product and know when you're actually going to win, what that right to win looks like. And so all of us in our head have kind of this ideal customer pattern. It's I know that there's 4 challenges that if I can hit one of those 4 boxes, I got a fighting chance. And you're going to be able to determine really quick. As fun as winning fast is, losing fast is also good, because you don't want to burn calories on stuff that's never going to generate revenue. And as sales professionals and business leaders, sometimes we get caught up in the battle and we don't realize that value enough. But I think that's the thing on the sales side that's really good advancing, is we're just understanding quicker if we have a problem to solve or not.
Got it. So Gessie, as you look at these trends, in a sense, it's becoming more complex and less complex almost at the same time, isn't it? Right?
Yes. Oh, no doubt about
it. And so how does a person, an executive, go about choosing what to do, where to look, and what they really need?
So the easiest way to do that is, before all of these sales tools came across, you had a business and you were selling before any of the sales tools or automation things were. And so instead of looking outward to the market on what people are doing and what is trendy or what's using, shopping for the tool that best fits the way that you're selling today is what you have to do. You don't want a round peg, square hole situation where you're just making it work because everybody's on Salesforce, so I got to use Salesforce, or any of the various tools out there. When you're looking largely, I think that you need to focus in on who are your current clients and how did you get them? And then it's kind of a rinse repeat game. What are the avenues, and double down on what is effective today. In the last piece of advice, which is the easiest thing to say and hardest thing ever to do, is to try to be different and try to stick out. We're we were one of the first people to use some of the video email, and it worked out really well for us. We have little dry erase boards, we put people's name on it with little pictures, and then before you know it, everybody's doing it. And then, now we're all just trying to sell in as many different ways possible. But as we step away from a world that's really used to doing business by a handshake, you got to start getting really creative on how you're going to keep those relationships with those customers. And it's almost like the combination to a vault. Every single individual I've worked with all has their preferred method of communication. I have people that will never pick up the phone no matter what I do, ever. They're never going to pick up the phone unless it's something scheduled. And then I have people that if I send them an email, they're just going to call me immediately. And so that email is a complete waste of time, and everything in between. And so you have to start having multi-channel strategies to understand how your customer likes to communicate, because we've given our customers 800 ways to communicate with us. And so we need to make sure that we're understanding how they like to communicate and we're using the appropriate method.
So tell me about one of the things that I think is hard in sales cycles sometimes is losing messaging between people that may be a part of the process. So part of what I think about as what you're doing with your engagement platform is really looking at holding those pieces together. Am I right or no?
No, 100%. I mean, your customer experience is incredibly important to your business reputation and everything you do. And so having a single source of information, because it used to be 5. I actually just read a thing recently that now it's 6.2 decision makers to get something sold in a modern day corporation. And so depending on your product, you might have to check, we're always going to check the procurement box, but then you got to check the marketing box, the operation box. Then, you just go down the line of a lot of people that have to sign off, and making sure that you have a single message you're getting to all those people and nothing gets lost is incredibly valuable for sure. In our platform, obviously, we'll give you that context history. And then another thing that as a society I've recognized is like our patience level is like at an all-time low. I look at my little 6-year-old daughter, and if her iPad doesn't load within like a second, she's frustrated. I'm just like, you have no idea, you little spoiled girl. You don't know what it was like to go home from Blockbuster and realize it wasn't rewound and have to sit there like grandma's VCR goes through 3 speeds. So the patience is literally level, and people don't want to have to re-explain themselves. And so making sure that anyone in the company can type in the name as soon as they call in and get a very quick overview of what's been communicated. And so your customer can feel like they have picked up right when they left off, no matter who they talk to, is going to make you look really good and organized as a business.
So the platform that you have, I take it, does all of these things. Explain it a little bit for us, if you would, please.
I'd love to. So it's OnCourse Sales Engagement Platform. And so this is a CRM tool, and we call it Sales Engagement Platform. People are like, oh, they came up with a cute phrase for CRM. It is more than that, just because inside that CRM, because we wanted that continuity of activity, inside that is built, you do have the phone. It's got a dialer built into it. It has SMS, bulk SMS, and so you can send out text messages, reminder messages from the tool. It links with your email. It has LinkedIn automation. If you use LinkedIn for your outreach or to get feedback on products and ideas, it has that stuff built into it. It also has a lot of web to lead and automation. So if you have a website where people are filling out forms and maybe you don't have the time to automatically respond, you need a system for that and be able to capture that information and market to. Those tools are built into the process as well. And again, the spirit of which the tool was originated was out of a business problem that we had, where we had just too many bills stacking up. So we built this to chip away. And so it's really just kind of consolidating a lot of different those channels into one. And then being able to, the ultimate goal, and this is I think the goal of anytime you use sales software, is to just see how did we win, how do we get there, so you can duplicate and double down on those efforts.
So Gessie, who's your ideal client? If you could just wave a magic wand and have them all line up outside your door, what would they look like?
Yeah, so perfect businesses for us are maybe a small to mid-sized company that has anywhere from 5 to 20 sales reps. We did bring on a company with like 45 sales reps, but the real value we're bringing is we're going to give you a lot of functionality for a flat rate. And we have our own in-house implementation team, and so you don't have to worry about going to third parties to set up tool. We can do lots of different software development and things for your company all under one roof. And so if you're a business that's, under 50 million in revenue with a fair amount of salespeople, we could probably bring a lot of value. And if you're in a bunch of tools today, we can also probably save you lots of money in addition to bringing that extra value to your organization for sure. As well as, and I'm sorry, I'll throw in one more caveat, is if you're not really used to using a CRM before or leveraging some of those, we have a white glove onboarding process that literally we take you hand by hand and we're going to show you. Most people fail in their CRM experience because they don't know what they don't know, and so they end up only using like 30% of the tool. It's really important for us. Selfishly, we want you to get so married to this thing that you never ever dare leaving. And so for us, it's worth the investment to really train people up. And so if you're hesitant on using those tools, you never have, we have a whole team that's dedicated to those type of businesses.
How long does it take for somebody to really get comfortable and to get to know how to use the tool?
Yeah, so you come in and you'll kind of evaluate your current sales process and configure, and then it's really like 3 different training sessions. You have initial kind of onboarding discussion where we find out we learn about your business, find out what our tool can do, where we can help, and where we should quickly, frankly, stay out of the way. And then we build out a plan. That plan can take less than a week in most cases. And then from there, it's just you have kind of an initial training, and then we follow up with 2 other trainings afterwards, because you kind of have to teach the kids math, let them do their homework, and then reapply that kind of next skill set.
Got it. So what are the biggest mistakes people can make in looking at CRMs and sales platforms?
The number one biggest mistake of all time is not letting one of your sales reps demo it before you make a decision.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I can.
As a business leader, you might be thinking, oh, I'm going to get this reporting, the price is right, everything's going great. And then you implement it and nobody wants to use it. That is the worst case scenario, because most CRMs fail because of lack of sales rep engagement. And if I cannot, or one of my team members cannot show one of your sales rep, a person that's going to live in the tool every single day, if I cannot show them how they can use our tool to make more money and to make their life easier, then it's going to fail. And it doesn't matter how much reporting or anything you do on top of it. If people that are in the tool every single day don't like it and don't see the value in it, then we're doomed. And so that's the first and foremost, the best advice I would give is get the people on several demos, come up with a committee of business leaders, and someone from accounting, someone from field sales, inside sales, sales leadership. Just make a little committee to go and evaluate those things together to make sure you can check all the boxes.
So, Gessie, if you were going to give advice to an entrepreneurial company, for example, what's the most important advice that you could give? You've seen companies at various levels doing different things. What's your biggest piece of advice?
Oh man, I am probably going to catch a lot of crap for this, but I would say yes. Say yes and say yes often, man. Figure it out. Somebody wants you to do something, and when you're in that climb for revenue phase, you'd be surprised what you can make work. And so get in front, and if you have a good opportunity, say yes. And I also would say patience is really key, and you have to let your product or service get out into the market, and you have to really learn. You might think you know what your value prop is, but your value prop might be different for different individuals. And so find out where you can really stand out and where your kind of niche is, and then double down on that niche. But don't be patient. Don't be patient. be patient and let that niche come to you, because you could end up guiding the ship in the wrong way. I, for example, really thought that, we would go after some more enterprise companies and stuff like that, and I was going to consolidate and save them massive amount of budgets and all that kind of stuff. That ended up being a terrible move, because big companies they're cruise ships. They can't turn on a dime. So, and then we actually noticed, just because of customers, the people who called are the where we ended up. We just kept listening to them. They want something, we say, okay. They want something, we say, yep, I can do it. Yep, let's figure it out. And we just kept taking that customer feedback. You got to survey, and you can't just bend over for everybody, but, it's really critical to that start. And your first, and I have been in a startup environment, especially with this tool, and your first 10 customers are going to be relationship based. So you have to expect that. And it could go as to your first 100 clients, just depending on the nature of the product or service. And if you're having a hard time selling to people that already like you, this is going to be a hard uphill battle. And so it's going to be a good indicator. If you can sell to people that you know and trust, and then they start seeing a value, use them to tell your story.
Got it. So I take it with your platform, you've got all your friends enrolled, and they've all said yes, right?
Absolutely. A lot of guys have gotten a lot of phone calls from me saying, hey, bud, you got to try it out.
I'm sure they have. So back to emails. Emails, you hear so many different pieces of information. Do they work? Don't they work? How do you get them? How do you hype them? Don't you hype them? Short snippets, bullets, advice that you have.
Oh, Lois, we can do another 5 hours on email.
Okay, well, I might take you up on that, Gessie.
Here's the thing. A lot of times the biggest challenge is technical. And you can have you can go to, there's actually, I believe it's called subjectlines.com, where you can actually type in subject lines and get them evaluated. You can have the word perfect, you use the word you, and you did all the right things. Then you can have your top 5 whatever that you're going to get now. And if you don't hit the inbox, it's all for nothing. And especially cold email, you have subscription lists and things that people subscribe to do. And that's obviously best case scenario, right? Someone gave you permission to market to them. But some of us out here in the streets, we don't have the luxury of knowing 10,000 people that will subscribe to our thing. Right. So we have to do it cold. And there's a couple of key categories, and more than happy to talk about it because there's a lot baked into this cake. But one is how you structure your own email from an administrative section. Google is a company that polices a lot of what happens activity-wise with email. And they have settings, and these settings were all built around they're all built around security and with the best things in mind, saying that I don't want, Lois, if you get someone to hacks your email and they automatically blast 5,000 people in a second, we want to be able to shut that down. We want security things in place. Well, the same thing also kind of kills your outreach, because if you don't have your sellers' emails set up to do that kind of volume, they're already, if they're email blasting people, a lot of it's getting stopped before it even exited the door. And the stuff that's going through also can go straight into people's spam, because Google and other companies, Outlook, Exchange Server, all those type of email hosters are also looking at what is the similarity in those messages. So if you only changed one word in 200 messages and you did that within 5 minutes, nobody thinks a human did that. And right. So you have to look at email throttling. You have to look at personalization. And there's a lot of those key components from a technical standpoint that if you do not get into place, you'll never have an email campaign that works. Now, on a more positive side, it's also the greatest ROI the world's ever seen. email, it basically costs next to nothing and it can generate huge sales. So once you have, it is so worth, so email's not dead. We're all frustrated by it, but it's still catching people and it's very cheap to do. And so everyone should. If you don't have an email strategy, you definitely need one because there's no harm. Your investment into this is not that big of a deal. But if you're going to have one, you do need to make sure that you're not wasting all of your time and that you're doing the right technical things in order to get those emails to actually show up in people's inboxes. Because that's the biggest challenge of all. Because everyone has Zoom info and all these other tools where you can pull down a list of 1,000 email addresses, no problem. But how are you going to actually get them to see it on their phone is the critical part.
Right. So, Gessie, when you talk about email throttling, I'm assuming your platform does that, but what I'm understanding that to be is taking emails and staging them so that they don't all go out at the same time. Is that correct? Is that the concept?
Yeah, absolutely. And so what you're doing is, let's say if I throw 10 people a day into a campaign, now I need to have about 28 seconds in between each email so that it doesn't hit one of Google's triggers. And then I also need to not send more than 200 per day from that same domain or that same email. And so what our tool does is allow you to just kind of throw all of it in a big hopper, and then it'll meter out appropriately and disperse those emails in the most effective way to hit the inbox.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges for all of us, right? Is how do we leverage those emails? Because otherwise you've got a large advertising budget that you have to really move into.
Yeah, and you're hoping that some of the less costly marketing efforts will help offset some of the more costly stuff and the pay-per-click ads and all those things. And so it is something that can be done. You can cut through the noise, and we're more than willing to help you with it. And then there's other companies out there also that can show you and give you some advice on the technical perspective of how you're actually going to get to that inbox, because it's, unfortunately, there's no silver bullet. There's no like one thing you can do. It's like 7 things you have to do in order to get it to work.
Got it. Wow, Gessie, our time has just flown by, and it has been wonderful to have your input on this. I think it's something that every single person in the business world is struggling with right now. How do we manage our sales? How do we do it so we're as efficient as possible? What are the tools that are out there that really allow us to do that? So go ahead.
And there's nothing better to your legacy than make sure that it was financially successful. That's going to be one of the more things. And so that's what we're trying to help people do.
Isn't that the truth? Gessie, thank you so much for being with us on Building My Legacy podcast. And for all of you who are listening, thank you so much. And we trust that this has been really valuable information for you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.